Welcome to this Bitcoin bonus episode. It's a Fantasy House Bitcoin bonus. I think we're going to do a few of these because they're so much fun. And Bitcoin people, enthusiasts they're so much fun to interview. And I feel like it's bringing some form of value to my listeners. I've gotten great feedback on other bonus episodes. So this is the second Bitcoin bonus, and I am stoked. I have a guest here that met through a mutual friend, and he's a Bitcoiner himself. I don't even know if that's the right way to say it. I'll let him correct me when I bring him on. But Coyn is here.
John, appreciate you having me on.
Hell yeah, man. I'm stoked. I would love to know like what was your intro to Bitcoin and what made you go like, oh, this is something, because we get intro to stuff all the time. You find out like, what about this? What about that? And if you're in any entrepreneurial investment world, everybody's coming at you with like, hey, don't waste time with this other stuff. You got to check this out. So what about Bitcoin made you go, this is the thing I'm going to focus on?
Yeah. So I was in college. It was early 2013. I had a finance and accounting background, started a value investing program at the University of Alabama. And everybody has that friend that just won't shut up about Bitcoin. In my case, it had to be very early on, so I was really lucky.
Yeah.
But that's what made me make my first purchase, was probably my 20th conversation with a good friend of mine from college that's now my business partner. And what really got me hooked on Bitcoin wasn't that purchase. It was the right before the meteoric rise in 2013, where we had a parabolic move in price, and I 15x my money. And that's what made me actually dig into Bitcoin to begin with.
Now, what did it go from? What was the price in 2013 that jumped 15 times?
It was $60 whenever I entered. We reached a peak of $1,300, and I think it was mid 2013.
That's like one of those time machine things. It's like, you try to go through like all the complex ways you could go back in the past and change stuff. You're like, if I could just go back to 2013 real quick and just purchase enough of that stuff for $60 a piece, done.
Everybody also has that story, John,
The time machine story. Oh man. Well, I guess like you did it. You found out like, okay, this is going to make money. Was there anything else besides the financial? I mean, because I got stoked when I heard about it. I remember Antonopoulos talking about like how I didn't understand what blockchain was, and I still have to refresh myself to understand. I'll listen to like a Blinkist audiobook, like how's the blockchain work again? But just that stuff fascinated me to where I thought like it felt kind of cool, almost like a tribal instinct of being part of like a movement, or like, oh, this is a whole new way people are going to be using money. Did that happen to you at all?
Yeah, so digging into it, it's really hard with Bitcoin to take off your U.S. hat, because we live in this comfortable financial system, the best currency in the world, most stable currency in the world that everybody else bases their value off on. But what really got me caught with Bitcoin and intrigued with it was learning that there's 7 billion people in the world. Close to 2 billion of those 7 billion people don't have a bank account or access to a financial institution.
Yeah.
So on top of that, you dig into inflation that goes around the world, which is one reason I'm excited to get on this podcast, is that real estate people, they understand scarcity, which is Bitcoin's one of the main value propositions, and they understand inflation if they're investing in real estate. So whenever you look at that, inflation losing your purchasing power over time, Bitcoin is a deflationary currency, which Andrew talked a lot about in the last episode. Did a great job in the overview of Bitcoin. But once you dig into the fact that you could own an asset, hold it yourself, and have it gain purchasing power for you over time, was something that really excited me. And also the fact that there's more people by the end of this year, John, that have a smartphone and access to internet than have running water in their household. So you have all these people that have 10, 15.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, have 10, 15, 20% inflation. Where they're just losing purchasing power, being suppressed by their government. And that Bitcoin can give anybody with internet connection and a smartphone access to this whole new world of opportunity.
It's like they don't need anybody else to, like, a gatekeeper for their money in this way. Like I could literally send someone out in the middle of nowhere in the Saharas $50 right now.
Exactly.
With nothing else.
That's where the just looking at the overall world and the need that Bitcoin could fill is what really got me to start diving down the rabbit hole.
Yeah, same here. I feel like that's so cool. Even me barely understanding it, I'm like, I get it enough to where that being able to just text someone some cash real quick. Because when I've tried, and again, I don't know enough sometimes to explain to like the layman, because I'm the layman. So I'm like, how do I explain to my wife when I'm trying to tell her what? Because if you say, well, you could Bitcoin's rad, people will be like, yeah, but I got Apple Pay, or yeah, I got my Visa. Like, what's the problem? It's just my credit card. But explaining like what you just said, we're comfortable in America or in England or in France that like, yeah, we got our stuff. But like in other parts of the world, they don't necessarily, you don't have a credit card and you don't have Apple Pay or any of those things, but you can get Bitcoin as securely transferred digital currency. So have you bought anything with your Bitcoin, or have you just like completely 100% left it alone?
65% of all Bitcoin hasn't moved in the last year. Andrew gave on the last episode some great examples on Bitcoin's main use case being digital gold.
Yeah,
it's kind of a collectible, like this weird thing that people were intrigued by, becoming a store of value that really today isn't a very good currency, but it's constantly evolving and developing. And so you have all these characteristics of currency: scarcity, divisibility, portability. The most important one being scarcity, and that's where the store value comes into play. I have bought things with my Bitcoin. All of those times I've regretted.
Oh, dude,
it's kind of an interesting process to walk yourself through, man. Where you're like, all right, if this is going to be worth more tomorrow, then do I really want to spend it?
Yeah, I get that. Well, I bought a pair of Converse just to see that it would work like years ago when Bitcoin was a few $1,000s. So my $60 Converse, $65 Converse, they were pretty fancy if you think about it now in today's terms. But I got myself, what do they call them, Yeezys or whatever? I got Kanye's shoes. But it was cool to actually see it work. Like to be like, oh, I can transfer this to my bank account right now and then spend that money right now. And it's actually going to, and it worked. And I was like, wow, it is real. It kind of makes it more tangible. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And holding it in your own wallet and just walking around with it while it's encrypted and nobody else can have access to it, and you have your financial net worth just on you, is a pretty amazing experience to have, to actually custody your assets, because you don't get to do that very often in the real world.
Really starts making you want to wear nice outdoor research like hiking shorts with zippers on the pockets. You're like, you know what? I think I'll really watch what happens to this wallet.
Yeah.
Can you explain a little bit of you brought up a couple of times how it's finite, because that's a whole nother layer that I think is super interesting about it.
So yeah, sure. Everyone, whenever they look at Bitcoin, everyone focuses on the demand aspects of Bitcoin. So, which we can talk about in a minute. But the more important aspect in our minds and our investment funds' minds is the scarcity, especially the monetary policy. So Bitcoin has a set issuance schedule for the next 150 years. It's like 2140 whenever the last Bitcoin would be mined. And that issuance schedule of the amount of Bitcoin coming online, 85% has been mined a day, more comes online every 10 minutes, gets cut in half every 4 years. And whenever that happens, there's reduced sell side pressure on the market. Demand is constantly growing over time. Bitcoin comes this inflection point that makes these these parabolic moves in price, which is Bitcoin's number one marketing engine to bring people onto the network. Those are followed by incredible crashes in price. So if you look at Bitcoin over the last 12 years, 10 out of the last 12 years, it would be the best performing asset in the world, which is why now you've only had individuals in the past, but institutions are now starting to come into the market.
Now, is there a fear with I was talking to my pops about this the other day because I was just going over things with him about it. Well, is there a fear that like these institutions coming into the market, that they're going to do what corporations have done before when they find it's like a predatory thing that they do like in the wild? They see this thing and they're like, let's just buy that company and then dissolve it, and then it won't be our competition. Is there a possibility of that? Like, because I think Andrew was talking about in the other episode, like the banks saying like, yeah, Bitcoin's crap, don't buy it. And then like the next week, the bank went and bought a huge amount of Bitcoin. And I'm like, are they helping to keep it alive, or are they like trying to buy it up to just dump it and be like, it's trash? Does that make sense? I don't even know if I...
Yeah, so the unseizability portion of Bitcoin is really cool, but I think the most fascinating part of Bitcoin actually is how anti-fragile it is. So since I've gotten into Bitcoin in 2013, The Chinese government has banned Bitcoin several times.
Yeah.
The main exchange back then in 2013 that was trading Bitcoin, over 90% of trading volume, got hacked and went under. There's been tens of governments that have completely banned Bitcoin, and it's been declared dead by media companies thousands and thousands of times. So Bitcoin's anti-fragility and the decentralized aspect of Bitcoin not having a founder, there is no head to the snake that you can cut off to stop it. In contrast, you've seen major players like Facebook come out with, I don't know if you've heard of this, Libra, where it was going to be backed by Bitcoin, gold, the US dollar, Japan's currency, where, you know, the largest social media network in the world tried to launch a competitor to Bitcoin. Within 2 weeks, they had letters from 6 different governments saying, you got to shut this down. Otherwise, you know, you're not allowed to operate in our country. So the anti-fragility and fact that you can't stop it. People have tried, and the U.S. government, we're actually welcoming Bitcoin innovation and done a great job here in the United States so far.
That's good. That's good to hear, man. I think that's my hopes, is that it continues to be an innovator and that people aren't trying to do anything nasty with it. But from what you're saying, it's got a future, because even the big players are now like, no, we're going to defend the Bitcoin now because we're invested in it and we want it to grow. So
well, you would have to stop the internet to stop Bitcoin.
Don't put it past some of the assholes out there on this planet. There's some people that want to stop the internet. I know a couple of them.
A lot of things that can slow it down, but it's arguably unstoppable.
Okay, that's good. And speaking of unstoppable, I've had a couple arguments that the dollar is going to go to, because of all the spending that we do and all the debt we're in. Is there I'm a gentle soul, I think, when it comes to like apocalyptic and awful Mad Max scenarios in our world. It's definitely the main things that keep me up at night. Is there a scenario where Bitcoin goes up in value, the dollar doesn't hold the strength it has, but maybe Bitcoin saves the day and our society stays functioning? Because I was talking to another buddy recently. He's like, it's probably going to be pretty bad, but you'll be rich because you'll have Bitcoin. I was like, that doesn't make me happy. I don't want to be fighting off the zombies from behind a fence. I want us to still be functioning. Do you see that at all? I know that's a real crystal ball question to just ask a dude on the podcast.
Bitcoin's vision, which isn't controlled by anyone, is a multi-100-year sort of plan. I don't know if it's there yet to where it could completely replace global currency. I think that it's in a place where it's growing every single year. So the amount of developers on top of the platform, the companies on top of the platform, the amount of people that are being onboarded into Bitcoin, whether the price is up or down in any given years, those are doubling over time. But the ultimate scenario for Bitcoin is we have this huge analog to digital shift that's happening across the world. Yeah. So the majority of assets that you have in technology, it's a deflationary force, technology. It's taking away our jobs. You have AI and machinery, like we're going to have autonomous cars, where there's going to be a lot of people, unless they have a specific skill knowledge, that aren't going to be able to find work. And in that environment, if we have a event like coronavirus that comes and makes 40 million people go out of work and we can't put them back to work, then you either have to subsidize them and use an inflationary asset, or replace that inflationary system with a deflationary system where what they're holding is growing in purchasing power over time, where maybe they don't have to do 40-hour weeks every single week to be able to live the same lifestyle that they had before with technology.
Yeah. So basically that was the long way of saying, like, yeah, Bitcoin can save the day, but we just don't know when, and it's just playing a long game.
Long-term, Bitcoin is a utopia and will provide abundance for the world. It's a system that anyone will have the choice, and currently does have the choice, to opt into. Yeah. But you don't have to. So at the very least, Bitcoin will keep corrupt governments more honest. At the most, it's the savior of our financial system, and everything is based upon it.
So I want to get into the corruption stuff and figuring that out, because that's also one of the things that blew my mind when they started talking about the accountability in blockchain and things like that. So like, there's one argument that like it's going to make people accountable as far as like government's going, right? It's going to take away corruption because of the blockchain and the record keeping in the blockchain. And then the other thing that's happening is people are saying like, hey, I don't want every dollar that I'm spending being traced. Like that's an infringement on my liberties. And I can understand both of those arguments. But how can we have both of those? It's like eating your cake and having it too. Like, okay, they won't trace you, but we'll trace people in the government or just governments in general to see where the money's going. Is that possible with Bitcoin?
Yeah, it's not possible today if you're KYCing yourself. And people have different opinions. I think that everybody needs to pay their taxes to their government personally.
Yeah.
And being a manager of a financial institution that's managing Bitcoin assets, provide a yield for people. I'm KYC'd in most places where a lot of my stuff is not super private. In the long term, I think privacy solutions will come with Bitcoin to where it's just like privacy with spending cash.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it's not there today. And there are companies like Chainalysis that have 650 employees that are working with all the major governments across the world, just tracking the blockchain. Luckily, they're trying to take the bad guys today, but it does lead to an institution, an issue if they try going after the good guys. If you have a corrupt government,
yeah, I mean it's hard to have your cake and eat it too with some of these things. But where do you think we are as far as on the timeline of making it not a nerd currency? Like right now, it's only enthusiasts. It's like, where are we to the point where people that have Apple Pay are going to be the same people that are like, oh yeah, I'll use my Bitcoin, because we haven't bridged that gap yet. Like regular people, like squares that don't pay attention to Bitcoin and the details are like, what do I need that for? When are they just going to be like, yeah, pay me in Bitcoin?
All of the major governments across the world, they're all working on a digital currency, right? So I think within the next 5 years, you're going to see the US, well, within the next 5 years, China, the EU, other currencies come out with their own central bank digital currency. But that's not really the point of the argument, because currencies are already digital and they're already easy to use for all of us. I don't have a problem using my credit card. It's the inflationary versus deflationary argument that really matters. And that's what governments still, in my mind, haven't picked up on, is the reason why Bitcoin is successful is because people don't want their currency to be inflated away and spent on things inappropriately the way that they don't want them to be spent.
They want to pull the leash back a little bit and say like, no, this is the finite amount. Mm-hmm. Although we can give everything half-lives and split them up to tiny little particles, but yeah. Where do you think people should go if they want, like, if listeners are hearing this, they're like, I want to buy some Bitcoin. Like, should they? What's the best way to get it, you think?
There are a lot of places to buy Bitcoin now. PayPal just came out with news, and I think it's available to all users where you can go there. I think starting out, you should buy a small amount and use that to educate yourself. I would say that about any asset that you're looking at exploring adding to your portfolio. Coinbase, Gemini, Robinhood, Square App, Cash App. There are a plethora of places, and all of them at this point are good places to purchase Bitcoin. If you gather a larger amount of Bitcoin, it's important that you have the appropriate security. And probably take it offline and find a friend that's an advocate for Bitcoin to help you with that if you do.
That's good advice. Where can people find you if they want to talk more about this or hear more of what you got to say?
We have a newsletter, UTXO.management, and you can go there and sign up and hear the majority of our thoughts. We also have a lot of resources on that page, and we also run a Bitcoin conference, the largest in the world, with my two partners involved in the fund with me. And I can send you the link for those if you want to put it in the show notes.
I'll put that in the show notes. Yeah, totally. Thanks so much for doing this, man. It's great. So much fun.
Well, John, reach out with any questions. I'm excited for you to go further down the rabbit hole.
You're making me want to, like right now. I have another call I got to do right now. I'm like, man, I would like to not do my other call and go down the rabbit hole. I'll hit you up soon though, and we'll chat more.
All right, cool. Thanks
so much, man. Bye. Guys, thanks for tuning in to this Bitcoin bonus. Yeah, I'll put it in the notes, and I hope you guys have a great day. Mwah. Ciao.